Hello everybody, my name is Eric and I'm here to pitch our venture Kulisha. Now, Kulisha is a revolutionary for-profit company that produces a commercial grade fish feed for fish farmers in Kenya that helps to increase their yields. Now, I want to start by talking a little bit about aquaculture, wild fisheries, and the potential of fish. So fish have a huge potential to feed this growing population. It's the most efficient way to get animal protein to people around the world. However, the oceans are currently being fished at capacity, which is having severe environmental and social implications. Aquaculture is a way to maintain the benefits of the potential of fish, but also removing the problems associated with ocean trawling. So currently the average African consumes about 30% of their protein and micronutrient intake from fish. There's also a growing middle class in Kenya, which is leading to a 5 times increase in aquaculture production over the past 4 years. Now, my co-founder Viraj is from Kenya and has identified one main problem in the aquaculture industry there, and that's the lack of access to cheap, high-quality feed. So I want to introduce you to Mochomi. He is from Viraj's village, and he is currently a farmer in Africa. And I want to take you through what he has to do to get feed. He first has to source inaccessible and only seasonally available ingredients. He'll then grind, measure, and mix those, and then pelletize them using basic kitchen tools such as a meat pulverizer or a pasta maker. After that, he'll then sun-dry the pellets, leaving him with a low quality and inconsistent feed. Now, Mochomi isn't the only farmer that we've interviewed. We've interviewed 32 farmers, and of those, 30 have currently displayed dissatisfaction with their current feed options. Now, let's talk about the alternatives. So I just talked about homemade feed that's timely and inconsistent. Next is Kenyan-made feeds. However, there's very little aquafeed production in Kenya, so what most people are buying is actually a poultry feed. This is suboptimal and not floatable. The homemade method doesn't have a floatable feed either, and what that means is that the feed doesn't float, and so it's much more difficult for the fish to consume, as well as it sinks to the bottom and dirties the water quality. Finally, there's imported feeds. These are very expensive and inaccessible. One common theme among all of these feeds is that they're all made with ocean trawled fish, which is what I was talking about earlier. And there's lots of feed made with fish. In fact, 30% of the wild fish caught goes to producing animal feed. And there was a study that came out of Stanford that said if 50% of the world's aquaculture industry would stop using fish meal as a protein base, our oceans would be saved. That's a pretty powerful statement. So what do we want to do? We want to make a fish feed out of insects. Now, why do we want to use insects? And the insect that we're choosing to use is black soldier fly. The reason for that is because black soldier fly are native to Kenya, so it poses no environmental risk. Also, there have been preliminary studies done on this insect and have shown increased yields of 18 to 34% among our target customers' fish. Also, among the 30-plus interviews that we farmed, there's been no demonstrated fear or hesitation in switching to our product. It has no effect on the end taste or quality of the fish, and these insects are not vectors for disease. Also, this is a natural-based feed. If you think about fly fishing, this is something intuitive. We're trying to just bring things back to the basics. So we have 2 main customers. The first are hatcheries. They have a little bit higher willingness to pay because they have a higher protein requirement and a less specific size requirement. They'll then sell their fish to grow-out farmers, which then develop them for the end consumer. They have a less specific protein requirement and a less specific size requirement, which means they have a little bit lower willingness to pay. Our plan is to really dominate the hatchery market because that's where we believe the profits are. So I want to compare our product to some of the things I mentioned earlier. And what I really want to point your attention to is the food conversion ratio. What that means is the amount of feed that I feed my fish to the amount of weight that the fish puts on. So ideally, I want that to be as low as possible because that means I'm feeding my fish very little feed, but they're growing very quickly. Our product is superior to all feeds in that segment, which is why it produces higher yields. So homemade feed. We are a little bit more expensive than them. However, because it's so timely and difficult to produce, current farmers have demonstrated that they'd be willing to pay extra to switch. It also results in fines, which are pieces that are too small to feed the fish, and is very timely and is only seasonally available ingredients. So the feed is inconsistent. Kenyan-made feeds are about price competitive or slightly cheaper. However, like I said, it's primarily poultry feed, so it's low quality and can actually contain up to 30% gravel. Customers have also been willing to have also demonstrated that they'd be willing to switch from Kenyan feeds. Finally, we have imported feeds. Now, this is where our biggest competitor is because they're really dominating the hatchery market right now, and this is where we want to come in. So not only are we a superior feed, but we undercut them in costs, and they're very difficult to find. So where in the value chain do we occupy? Well, we really want to occupy the insect production realm. So what that looks like is we first catch flies to maintain the genetic diversity of our colony. We'll then put them in the hatchery where they'll lay eggs. They'll be moved to the nursery, and after 4 days, those eggs will hatch. They'll then move to our major production facility where they'll be fed food scraps until they grow after 2 weeks, and then we'll harvest them. Next is feed processing. We're working with Fanway feed pellet equipment manufacturers to buy equipment from them so that we have the processing capabilities. Finally, marketing. So we've developed a partnership with the government, which is extremely powerful. They'll be trialing our feeds, and why this is so significant is because aquaculture has really been encouraged by the Kenyan government. In every county in Kenya, there's a government fisheries building that leads discussions, forums, workshops on how you can effectively grow feed faster, where they recommend products. Because we'll be trialing with them, if the product is successful, they'll recommend our feed to farmers. We also, through this, have the contacts for every farmer that's registered in Kenya. We hope to distribute this through Cooper K Brands, which is a leading animal health retailer and distributor, not just in Kenya, but all of Africa. They have over 13,000 locations in Kenya alone and have demonstrated interest in carrying our product. So I want to talk about the social implications. First is reduced methane. This comes from diverting food waste that would normally go to landfills to feed this fish. These costs, by the way, are per farmer per year. The average farmer is consuming about 50 kilograms per month. So the methane that I just mentioned is the equivalent of taking 79 cars off the road a year. Next is what I was talking about a little bit earlier with ocean fisheries. So not only is it environmentally damaging, but it really disproportionately affects coastal communities like Kenya that are dependent on fishing as a source of livelihood. We also have increased yields for farmers. We're planning on bringing in additional revenues of about $700, which doesn't sound like much, but it's over 30% of what the average Kenyan farmer is making right now. So these increased yields will increase the food supply and help reduce malnutrition in a food insecure area. The total social cost savings of this per farmer are $30,000. So let's talk about the team. I co-founded this with my best friend Viraj. We met at the Quinault Native American Reservation in Washington, and we were working with one of the largest hatcheries in the continental United States. And he mentioned to me the problems that Kenyan farmers are going through. So this is where we kind of thought of this idea. But since then, we've expanded. We took on Maya, who's from Costa Rica and also goes to Brown University, like my partner Viraj. She studies environmental science and has experience with insect production. We next have Lunalo. He went to the University of Nairobi and is also Kenyan. He's been helping to interview some of the farmers and developing the partnerships that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Finally, we have Arjun, who is Kenyan as well and is studying mechanical engineering at UCLA. He's helping us to design this proprietary system. So let's talk about our partners. First, we have partners in the insect production world. Dr. Philip Taylor and Dr. Chrysanthus Tanga are leading researchers in Kenya and America that are helping us to design this proprietary system. Next, we've partnered with the head of the Kenya Marine Fisheries and Research Institute and a professor here in SNRE. They're going to help us design a study to test our feed with fish in Kenya. We've also been selected as one of 10 finalists from over 400 different teams from over 100 different countries to pitch at the Global Thought for Food Summit in Zurich. And this has exposed us to a bunch of incredible opportunities, as well as gives us the opportunity to win cash prizes and meet industry leaders. So we were able to have a discussion with the Wharton Social Venture Fund, and we'll find out next week if we're going to be pitched to their investment committee. We've also been able to go through a 10-week boot camp with Startup Pirates, which is a startup consulting agency. We've also been working with various other organizations, both at the University of Michigan and Brown, such as TechArb, and have currently raised over $20,000 to fund this idea. We believe that this idea can revolutionarily change the way that people feed fish and therefore the way that we feed the world. Please help us feed this revolutionary product into being. Thank you.